Let me say that real quick. I know that everybody can't attend at this time, so if you have any problem with the recording, we're gonna ask you to drop off. But we did want to record this session for those who may not be able to be present. Um, I would like to say welcome. My name is Gilletta Patrick. This session is actually an informational session that I offer my team, just wanting to literally share um, uh, information on writing government resumes as well as um, information on interviewing. So later on this week, we have a second session that is the art of interviewing. Um, I will monitor the chat and I'll try to answer questions as we go. But for the most part, we'll definitely have some time in the end to take questions. With that, huge welcome. And let me start sharing my screen and kind of jump in. Now, I have no faces, so I need somebody to unmute and tell me if they can see see my screen.
I can see it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I was giving folks time. Okay. Okay, I got one face. Thank you, Venitra. I got two.
How you
Okay.
doing?
I know.
We were in the middle of a
I
session.
know people
I
are
gotta
coming
go.
on now.
I was
I
like, I gotta
see my
go.
faces. Thank you. It works better if I can see whether you're understanding or not. Oh, Shad came on. That's great. So it helps me to know if I'm saying something that makes sense or doesn't. So just want to kind of start out with a disclaimer for the session. You know, I like to stay in all good graces. One, I can't guarantee anybody a job. I can't guarantee you'll make selection or any of that. I always like to make note that I'm not a human capital specialist. And this is all based on personal experience. I don't mind telling my story. Basically, in '09 and 2010, in '09, I lost my father. In 2010, my nephew was killed in a car accident. I actually started out at JSC in Houston, Texas. And it was at that time that I said, hey, I want to get back to the East Coast so I could be closer to my family. Well, one of the nuances of working in a federal agency like this is that you don't just transfer most times. Most of the time, you really have to apply to another job in order to get to that other center or the other area. And so, what I found myself in this peculiar place is that I was a federal employee working for NASA and I could not get my resume through the system. I was like, this is crazy. So, how do people even do this? At the time, I was doing a detail at headquarters, and they just so happened to have people that talk to you about writing a government resume. That's those individuals are now gone, but everything that I could glean from them, I gleaned and started doing this session on how to write a government resume. Now, as life has it, things change. The system that we were using at one time has now changed, and we're using a system called USA Staffing. So there's new nuances, new strategies, new all of that. So you are receiving my first revamped session. So I appreciate any feedback you have for me. In order to, again, my thought of it is, hey, how do you work here or how do you get to work here when you don't understand how to actually do the resume? So that's why I make the statement, all of this is based on personal experience and I'm not human capital. So first thing is just kind of make a note of the comparison. If you're like me, you went through school, college, I won't say how long ago it was for me, but they kind of told you, you know, say what you were, those three bullets. And then, you know, that was really the traditional way of doing a resume. No specific format. I've seen resumes come in and all kinds of crazy things. It allows people to be creative, which is great, but it's not necessary. Resume usually for folks, and it's usually starts in our minds, is 1 to 2 pages only. And then we're evaluated against the company needs. Government resume, totally different. Totally different. First is that you're really restricted to a specific structure. The structure is designed, is the USA job structure. So you're going to actually put your information into these, entry boxes. The other thing is that quite often the government resume is narrative. Doesn't mean that you can't have bullets, you can, but you want to be a little bit more strategic in how you're creating it. Your biggest thing to make note of is that you're not on this 1 to 2 page limit. Your government resume printed out could be up to 5 pages. If you happen to be a student, I don't expect your resume to be 1 to 5 pages. I still expect a student's resume to be around the 1 to 2. But if you've been working for 10 years or more, your resume really can be on the printed side, maybe up to 5 pages. The other thing about your narrative aspect is that it really is going to have start out with those verbs and with the implied personal pronoun of I. So I'm going to say something about that here in a second, but this is the game changer for you when you are looking at and thinking about your government resume. Your government resume is actually evaluated against federal standards. So I work in the Office of STEM Engagement, and we put out a position for education education program specialist. Well, the thing about the federal government is that education program specialist criteria is going to be the same for an education program specialist at Department of Ed, at NSF, at, any other federal agency. So you're evaluated against federal standards and the specific job requirements. That is a huge difference in when you're thinking about how to write your resume. Here's a helpful hint when preparing to do this, is to really take out a Word file and massage and work your information in a just general Word file. Don't worry about formatting or any of that. Use Calibri, Times New Roman, whatever, just a generic font, 12 point, and then work out the details of your resume. I noted here that your resume is going to start out with verbs. If you're like me, you get real close to you go blank when it's time to come up with all the different action verbs. So I'm going to ask Eva if she doesn't mind. I have 2 documents of action verbs, if she can drop that in the chat for you. And we're going to kind of do different things along that line as we do this session of dropping some documents in the chat for you. But one of those documents of action verbs that I really like is synonyms, so that when you get to developed and you need another word for developed, you'll be able to pull it up and pull it up and find a new, use a different word or the like. So that's your difference between traditional versus government. So let's focus in on the narrative. How do we write the narrative? This particular content that I'm about to share with you now is the content that they shared with me, although so many years ago. And of course, we live at NASA, so it has to be an acronym. So this is where I'm going to tell you to get in the car. Your acronym is CAR, C-A-R. It stands for Challenge, Action, and Results. Challenge, Action, and Results. And so Here you want to focus on how do I create my narrative? You want to start out with identifying what was the challenge or what are you assigned to do? Um, or you're working on a team, or the like. So start out with the challenge. And then here is another key component. You want to talk about the action, but here you want to specifically talk about the actions you completed, not necessarily just the team accomplished. You want to focus on what you completed. And I really hone in on that, because this is the part of government, I mean, not government, but resume writing in general, that is counterintuitive for most individuals. We're generally taught not to brag on ourselves, but your resume is about bragging on yourself. So this is that place of, what did you do? I wrote this, I created this, I developed this, I coordinated this. This is where you want to have that type of content in your paragraph. And then you want to talk about the results. We're working, and hopefully it's to some benefit. Well, what is that benefit? Um, did you increase productivity? Were you able to, have a better research outcome? Did you reach more students? What was the, results? If you have a question, just throw it in the chat. I'm looking at the chat, so I can definitely address any questions as we're going along. So here's an example, a task to develop a strategy, etc. And then what did the person end up doing? They developed a system, implemented entrepreneurial approach, and then what were the results? A successful example of the engagement resulted in a $630,000 dollar award. So this is one example of a car. I'm gonna give you another example of a car. So this card says, hey, I'm a team member of a team of 4 responsible, for X, Y, and Z. And then, what did you do? You served as a liaison, you coordinated, you developed, and then what was the results? It was improved by 100%. So this formatting really helps to, how do I create my paragraphs when I'm trying to create my my content. Now I'm gonna give you a helpful hint. For me, this kind of was a light bulb moment for me. Is that you can really do your paragraphs, your narratives, I would say, in um, two formats. That might not be the best word, but you'll get it when I say it. One is topical. What I'm showing you right now are topical examples. It's the assignment that particular assignment that I had, or that particular project that I worked on, that particular task, that particular activity. The other way to develop your narratives is by skills. So you could talk about your experience as a project manager, or your experience with budget, or whatever research or program evaluation, planning, any of those skills. The reason why I kind of made note of that, you can always create a mix of the two. But remember that federal resumes are evaluated against federal standards, which is another way of saying they're evaluated against skills and competencies. But there is an aspect that they are evaluated by job requirements, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. So with that that I've shared so far, any questions or comments or anything about what I've shared? What I will ask, and I'm gonna come to you, Lisa, here in a second. What I will ask is, Eva, if you can drop in the chat, there's 2 documents of sample cars, and one is how to write a car. So those are 2 additional documents that we'll put in the chat, that'll be available to for folks. Okay, Lisa.
So my question is, to find the federal standards, do we just Google the title of the position and like federal standards?
No, so you still, okay, no. To find the federal standards, I don't really think you can. I think it's a thing that you want to kind of keep in mind. And your best first start of looking at what this job is requiring is the requirements in the job announcement. So in the USA job, there's going to be a section on roles and responsibilities or requirements. That particular section will be where you want to start as far as, hey, is this a job that I can do, and the like. I'm going to get here in a little bit, talk about how to do some specific crafting. This to me is, hey, how do I start out with my base resume? Which is something to make note of. USA Jobs will allow you to have up to 5 different resumes. You want to create a base resume. That's my recommendation. I want to make sure I say that. Create a base resume. This is the method by which you can create a base resume. Then you see a particular job, and then you want to kind of massage your information to make sure it's focused towards the job. And then there's a third step. I'm gonna get to the third step here in a little bit. I see a hand up. Ashika?
Yeah. Yes, thank you. I was wondering if the resume builder on USA Jobs, if we should use that over making our own resume.
Absolutely. You should use the resume builder, but I would go back to one of my other helpful hints is look at the resume builder as far as what content it's going to need, specifically in the arena of when you're talking about the job description part. For that job description part, this is how you want to formulate your job description information. Is that helpful?
Yeah, so I'm saying that there's 2 options on USA Jobs. One is to use the resume builder, and the other is just to upload a resume, which like you can upload by formatting it yourself in Word and then like saving it as a PDF. So I was wondering which one of those is better, or does it matter?
Oh, I don't think either would matter. I'm focusing on the content that's in your resume.
Okay.
Right. For me, I personally have just used, my resumes are old, and I used the resume builder at that time. It's been a minute, but USA Job now allows you to upload, and that would be fine. But yeah, my focus is the content of your resume, regardless of which side which way you get it in there. That would be fine.
Okay, and my other question, so I was looking online for some different formats of like federal resumes, and some of them have like a mission of the company section. I just didn't see it on your example, but I was wondering if that's supposed to be there.
No, NASA doesn't ask you anything about the mission of the company.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure, no problem. All right. Okay, wait.
Jolene, I have a quick question.
Shit. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, so we talked about the resume and federal government. Um, I've uploaded mine. It's been quite a long time, but they have sections where they break it out by GS levels. And sometimes I guess I'm looking for some advice. Sometimes you're on the same project doing various types of work. Do you break that down per, I was on this project for 5 years and this is what I did? Or do you break it down even further? I did it based on, I was on the project for 5 years, but then first 2 years I was a GS-12 and this is what I did as a 12 and then I got a 13 type of thing. Is there any advice on how well or how far you slice down all those pieces?
Yeah, that's a really good question. You can there are a couple of different ways to do that. There's probably not one good, one specific way. One school of thought obviously is to start out with, hey, this is that particular job. Note that as a civil servant, you are assigned a PD, a position description, and that has a name. So you could literally write that as your title, but then you working in your position may have a title. So the PD may say engineering staff 1 or something, but you serve as the lead X59, blah, blah, blah. So on the top level, you can have the PD name, and then here you can actually say some of the words that you just said. Served in this, in this group for 5 years, but in the following various positions, and then you can make note of served as project lead for blah, blah, blah. And then you can break those things down. And then you can create another section for serve as such and such, that, this, that, and the other. One thing that even as I'm talking, I'll make note of this, you can write that as one, and then you can write it as more than one. One reason you would want to write it as more than one, because those boxes have character limits. So you're only going to be able to have so much content in it. If you find that your content is depth and breadth long enough, then write it as different work experiences. But as long as you can make clarifying statements like that in your resume, because somebody's going to eventually read it, so you can make that clarifying statement. There's nothing that says that you can't. Does that help? Okay. I think I saw a question in the chat. Let me see if I can come back up. Do these have to stay on our NASA laptops? I'm not sure what that is referencing, Olivia. If you want to come on voice and let me know.
Yeah, so I was wondering if this was like something that had to stay on the NASA VPN servers.
Which, those documents?
Yes, the documents.
No, no. Yeah, you could take them. I've emailed them out. All of these are what I would consider, you could probably get them off the internet in some form or fashion. So yeah, they're free and clear documents. Okay. Thank you for that, Jacob. Jacob made note that that it did not accept the document upload. So maybe the resume builder is the better option. Yeah. Okay. And let me go back to Ashika. Do you still have your hand up, or okay, or do you have a question?
Sorry, I didn't realize my hand was still up, but I do have another question.
Sure.
So for Pathways, which is what I was recently applying to, the description of the position is very short, so it'll only be like 2 bullet points, and I was having trouble, like, I guess, matching every position to that. So they're very like general statements. So I was just wondering if you had any tips for Pathway specifically, how do we match to the description, which is very
Okay,
short description and very vague.
good question. I'm gonna come to that. That's my final. That's my driving home game changer. So I'm gonna definitely answer that as we do finish the presentation. Let me go to Vimitra.
Okay, thanks.
So my question, Dr. Patrick, is once you go through the whole process and get your application uploaded and your resume uploaded and all that good stuff, how do you get to that next step? Like, they email you and say, your application has been, I guess, sent to the next person. How do you craft your resume? Of course, it can get pinged from this system, the USA staffing system, but how do you just get that interview with the leads? I guess the people that are looking to hire somebody. How do you win that?
Wow. Okay, that is a really good question. Um, okay, I'm gonna ask you to hold that
Okay.
and ask me this question again at the end,
Okay.
because I'm gonna create a line for you, but
Okay.
ask me this question again at the end.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, great. So, let me do some specifics to civil servants for a second, because this has been a hiccup for civil servants to the point that they're actually not making certs for things that they really are eligible for because they're checking the wrong things. First thing to make note is that if you don't have your SF50 or don't know what it is, we we definitely reach out to me. But you need your SF50, and you're it's gonna be in a document that you're gonna attach to your actual application. So you want to go ahead and download your latest SF50 so that you have it already for you. The other thing is these two questions are tripping civil servants up to that they're clicking the wrong thing and it's disqualifying them from being able to even apply for the position. So the first question is the question will say, are you a current NASA federal employee serving on a career or career conditional appointment? You want to go to look at your SF50 and look at block 24. If it says 1 or 2, then you're going to answer, your answer to this question is going to be yes. I will make note again, I'm going to throw my other disclaimer. I'm not an HR specialist. I will try to answer as much as I can, but I'm not. But I I want to say um, uh, that if you are on a term assignment, that this is going to be a no for you. That uh, for answering this question of serving on a career or career conditional appointment. But I'll always throw that out. Please check with the HR specialist. The second question that trips civil servants up is, are you a current NASA federal employee on a competitive service appointment? We, it's not normal language for us. And so again, check your SF50 block 34 to verify whether you're a competitive service. So if you have one in that block 34, then that's going to be a yes for you. I also have a document. What's an SF50? Oh, that's a great question. Um, let me Eva, if you can drop in the chat things to keep in mind when applying through USA Staffing. That's for civil servants. So Ashika, an SF-50 is a personnel document for civil servants. It is the federal document that is kept by OPM, Office of Personnel Management, to identify each employee and their current status. It is also the document that is used to identify any changes in your status, like a raise, a GS change, a series change, or any of those things. So it really applies to any civil servants that may be on the call as far as for them applying to positions. Any questions from any civil servants about that? And I see your question, Portia. Can you explain and talk about the certification process? You talking about cert process? I think your question is probably the same thing as Demetrius, as far as submitting your application and actually getting to, hey, we want to interview you. Is that what you mean, Portia?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, great question. Okay, any questions from any civil servants? Okay, so this is the new thing in USA Staffing that's different for anybody applying. If you've applied, if you've applied previously on the old system, this is what is new on the new system, and this is the game changer on the new system, is assessment questions. You now not only have to submit your resume, but you will have about a dozen or more assessment questions. Have you seen that, Demetria? Okay. So you have these assessment questions. Remember, I made the statement that federal positions are evaluated on federal standards and job requirements. This is where the job specific requirement questions kind of come in. And this is a process statement. Those that are asking, hey, how is all of this coming together? These questions are based on competencies that have been identified for the position. So the hiring manager went through a process and identified these questions based on competencies they say are necessary for the position. I'm gonna pull all of that together, but I want to make sure I throw that nugget there. When you see the questions, you're going to rate your experience from no experience to expert. I'm going to clearly make sure I say this is Joletta's opinion. But if you look at a question and you can only say no experience, that's probably not a job you're going to make. You're not going to make it. So you're really going to want to apply at the expert or somewhere like right below that. But this is the key in expert. If you make note that you're an expert in something, you have to identify on your resume where you are an expert in that. So to me, this is the game changer. So this is my helpful hint. I'm going to say this for those, this is my strategy, recommended strategy, is that you really should try, if there's a job you want, you should really try to get to what those assessment questions are, copy and paste what those assessment questions are, then go back to your resume. And now you need to map your resume to clearly identify that you can do these assessment questions. Then go back and re-upload your new resume now and put it back and follow everything else back through the system. Because if you're noting this as expert, then you want to be able to clearly show and defend that you really are an expert in that arena. So this is the thing that ties everything back together. You got that question. Now you really want that defendable car paragraph that will say, hey, I really can do this particular position. So here, and I threw this on the side, be honest. You want to ensure that you're being honest. If you don't have expert level, then don't say that. But this is the other thing to think about is I want to go back to one of the statements I said earlier. Resume writing is usually counterintuitive because we're taught to be humble. I want you to brag. I want you to brag. So here's an example of some assessment questions. The ABCDE is the same for every assessment question, like no matter what. It doesn't matter which job it is at NASA, that this ABCDE is the same for every position. What you're looking at is this whatever this question says. So this says evaluate, troubleshoot, or provide improvements to the enterprise initiatives. I would take that, go back to my resume, and basically would assigned to improve enterprise. What have I done to improve the initiatives? Clearly stating that, and then what was the results of it? You know, am I saying do a car statement for every question? I don't know. It's more of what makes sense. Are there questions that can be covered in more than one area? You just want to ensure that you clearly defend that you are if you're saying you're an expert in this. If you don't say you're an expert, then you're not required to identify where where you need to go. So I think Ashika, your question you were asking, the requirements in the front facing document are pretty simple, and so it's not a whole lot, but there should be some of these assessment questions. Have you seen these assessment questions?
Actually for pathways, the assessment is different. So it's like reading comprehension and then interpersonal. So we watch like videos and then we select like what we would do in each situation. So like interpersonal conflict questions. Then I mentioned reading comprehension, which is like you read a passage and you say like what is happening in the passage, or like try to identify what the words mean. And then there's a third one, which is your personal behavior. So it'll just be ranking like I enjoy teamwork or I don't enjoy teamwork, or like I help others out or I don't help others out. So we rank it like that. So I haven't seen this type of assessment, but I'm assuming that the 3 assessments that we have to take for pathways are probably unique to pathways.
It is.
Okay.
It definitely, yeah. I'm not familiar.
Okay.
I think if that is the case of your assessment, I think the strategy is really the content of your resume.
Okay.
And just ensuring that it's clear, that it reflects, your experiences and the like.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. This is another example of another questionnaire or assessment, sorry. Again, you see the ABCDE is the same, but your what your assessment questions are different. Analyze the structure of an organization to support the development of educational programs. So you're really actually pulling that information into your resume. I think I'm gonna put a pin there. Let me see if I have questions. If you need the files, I would say either send an email to Eva or myself, and we can just get the files to you. So just let Eva know that you need the files. Yeah. Okay. So these are just reminders. Lead with verbs, spell out your acronyms, don't make assumptions. Even when you're applying for a position that's in your area, don't make an assumption, oh, I know the hiring manager, they're going to know my content. Don't make that assumption, because before your resume hits a hiring manager's hand, it has to go through the NSSC, NASA Shared Services. And so that's not a technical person, and they're the NSSC. I don't even know if I would call them an HR person. Maybe so. But it's the fact that somebody, third party, has to understand what you're saying in order to search you for that particular cert. Tailor your resume to the work that's being advertised. Be honest about your experience. Spell a grammar check, and make sure to provide any of the documentation listed. So we're at questions. Let me take this down. Now,